Hello, this is Dr. Rosie Kuhn, and this podcast series is called Aging Like a Guru. Who, me? So I think one element of life that is probably the scariest of any any part of life, a lot of it is scary, are those moments when we realize that we are alone with ourself in the circumstances as they are, in the isness of it in this moment. I have a number of new clients, and I have a couple of marriages I'm dealing with as a coaching, couples coaching, and both of them are in the process of the, in a sense, each partner is having to be with themselves in a place that's really, really, really scary for them. So even though the partnership is good and healthy, even though they trust and respect their partner, they want to go, both couples want to go deeper in terms of intimacy, physical intimacy, but also emotional intimacy. And so each individual of each couple has to be with themselves in a place that's really, really scary. And this one person, her name is Frankie. And again, I changed names just to protect people. But Frankie, she's had a pretty exciting life, and she is now in a partnership with Harold, and again, changed names. And Harold is a really, really good guy, and she loves him, and they're best friends, and they just really appreciate their partnership, and they want to go to the next level in terms of intimacy and sharing. And both of them are, in a sense, have gone as far as they've been able to go and not know what's next. So they reached out to me as a coach to empower them and support them in what's next. And Harold's so cute. He goes, I have no idea how to do this. I have no idea how to go to what's next here. And Frankie's the same. She says, I don't know. And so as we're talking about things, and the word trust came up, especially specifically with Frankie, and she's like, "Oh, I don't like that word." And I said, "Do you trust Harold?" And she says, "Absolutely." And I said, "Well, what's the issue with?" And she's like, ew. And so it was our first session, so we didn't tap too deeply into that, but she said, I never realized how much of my life and all the conditions and conditionings and circumstances brings me to this moment and this fear of being me. And I'm really scared. And though Harold is sharing his orientation very differently, he's a very cerebral person. He's, you can see where he's afraid and what happens for him when he gets afraid. He goes into his head and he gets very logical and rational, as opposed to staying in the place where it's scary. And nobody wants to stay where it's scary, but that's where the work is. That's where the juice is. And so there are many times in our life or lifetimes where we've experienced enormous aloneness with ourselves. Sometimes feeling like isolation from the world, and a complete sense of powerlessness and utter sanity in not knowing what to do or how to be. And this is, from a existential perspective, because we exist and because we have this human capacity to think and feel, we have this capacity to feel the deepest and darkest places that exist because we exist. And it's not wrong or bad to be in these places of just utter aloneness or powerlessness or helplessness or hopelessness. In the recovery program, the term hitting bottom is like an essential element of evolution through recovery into reclaiming oneself and one's wholeness. And if we don't hit bottom, we don't necessarily have the impetus or the resilience to move up into our wholeness. So the point of this particular podcast is to talk about that no matter where we are in our process of evolving as a human being, you being you do come upon these points of complete and utter aloneness. I've talked about the couple that I work with who have children that are going to be leaving the nest soon. And so who the parents are being in that is like, they don't know how to be with this circumstance, and their children don't know how to be in this circumstance. They don't know how to do this. They're just having to feel into it. And sometimes it feels like utter insanity. There's no right answers. There's no answers at all. And how do we be with that? And I think perhaps when people find themselves with a terminal illness and they're given the diagnosis, this is terminal, they don't know how to be with that. Nobody knows how to be with that. We can watch movies, we can watch YouTube's videos, like, what is this disease and what's it like? What's the prognosis, blah, blah, blah. But until we are in that state of being human with the circumstance that is either terminal, or our job is terminated, or we're losing our house, whatever it is, we can't know that experience, the utterliness of being, until those moments. As we age, we are constantly in states of being or circumstances that take us to the edge of this sanity, take us to the edge of our own aloneness with ourselves, and how we be in relationship with ourselves in those times. A lot of times people don't make it through that. They turn to drugs and alcohol, or food, or debt, or gaming, or distractions, pornography, to keep them from actually feeling what's utterly true as a human experience. And yet, as I've said before, we're here to have those human experiences. But most of us really want to avoid and ignore and deny and distract ourselves from them. And it makes sense. They're uncomfortable. And yet, too often we're put into situations by our own choosing to create these situations that will take us to our knees, will take us to our bottom. And that is not a bad thing. That's a very good thing. And especially if we're willing to be wise with ourselves and listen to our inner guru, perhaps get support. There are all kinds of 12-step programs that are free and have the support that people need to see the sanity in the circumstances, to see the spiritual evolution process and the principles that are at work here as you go through this spiritual process in the human world. So my intention in saying all of this is to support you in knowing that you are a human being, having human experiences, and one of those specific human experiences that's so scary is being you in moments that you can't share with anyone else. They're your experience. And it happens hundreds, if not thousands of times in a lifetime. And to honor that we're each on this journey, and how we do this is truly an enormous task of having courage and being courageous in the moment. Getting support from places and people that can hear you and who understand what you might be up to. You're not crazy, you're not sick, there's nothing wrong. You're just in a human experience that is taking you down. And it can be awful if you're losing or lost a loved one, especially through accidents and circumstances that you were not prepared for. That can be, totally shattering. And sometimes I use words like shattering, or it's annihilating, or horrific, and people go, "Well, that's kind of an exaggeration, isn't it?" It's like, no, at times your world is shattered, and it's a lot to come back from, and it's so possible and so real to come back into, and not just come back, but become more and more of your whole being self. And that's the whole intention of this inner guru kind of discussion, so that we know there's an inner guru, we know there's wisdom, we know there's something beyond the elements of circumstances and what life looks like. So I think that's pretty much it for now. I'd love to hear from you. Rosie at theparadigmshifts.com. If you're interested in books or blogs or videos, you can reach those at the paradigmshifts.com website, which is my website. All right. Big hugs to you all. Bye for now.